One. Yo, what is good, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP. Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. Got my boy Undisputed World Champ. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, it's all good, man. Shout out to Columbus, Georgia, man. We down here having a good night tonight, man. And hey, got up to 100 degrees today, man, but that's all right, man. We still enjoying some of this good weather, man. The summertime is almost gone. In the great words of Green Day, summer has gone and passed.
Well, man, make sure you drink plenty of water, man, because again, summer's still here. I want to make sure everyone stays hydrated. Make sure you drink as much water as you possibly can, man, because we don't want anybody like dehydrated or anything. So make sure y'all getting some water. But champ, preseason, the beginning of preseason. I mean, last week we saw the Houston Texans game versus the Chicago Bears in the game in Canton. I was watching a little bit of the preseason game between the Texans and the Steelers. I saw that touchdown pass from C.J. Stroud to Tank Dell, man. It seems to me like Houston, I know it's preseason, but they got potential of doing something.
Hey, never let anybody tell you that preseason doesn't matter because injuries happen during the preseason and it affects the whole season. Chemistry is developed during the preseason and it affects the whole season. We've seen a lot of breakout players come from having great preseasons to go and make Pro Bowls. We've seen a lot of guys who was having bad seasons before and then have their breakout season in preseason and it carries over. And then they become Hall of Famers. We saw that with Drew Brees when he was with the San Diego Chargers. So never let anybody tell you preseason don't matter. Now, as far as Houston is concerned, man, I can't wait to see what the full enchilada is going to be this season with that offense. Because that offense, I mean, it looks good on paper, but the way he was connected with Tank looked like he back at full health as well, man.
He does, though.
Kind of looking like Steve Smith a little bit out there, man. So, hey, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, man. Not to mention, man, Joe Milton. It's another one.
Yes. So, I mean, Houston, they got something to look forward to. Speaking of wide receivers, let's go there. Let's talk about one Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, all the reports about him being traded, we know he probably wants out of here with San Francisco. We just talked about it prior to the show that he nixed the deal. The 49ers and the Cleveland Browns had a trade. The Cleveland Browns would get Brandon Aiyuk, and the 49ers would receive Amari Cooper, a second-round pick, and a fifth-round pick. But Brandon Aiyuk nixed the deal because Cleveland wasn't a preferred destination, according to Matt Mayako from CBS Sports. And plus, he reportedly turned down the deal to the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
So, champ, what's going on with Brandon Aiyuk?
Number one, I don't believe he wanted Amari Cooper to be traded. I think that had a factor in him nixing that trade. I think he wants to pair up with Amari Cooper because the thing is, you're going to lose Amari Cooper, and really you're going to be out there by yourself outside of David Njoku. That's why I believe one reason. I could be reaching, but I believe that's one reason. Another reason why I think he nixed that trade is, like you said before we went on the air, I don't think he wants to be in a small market. I think he wants to be in a huge market. I know Cleveland is a big football market, but as far as a market itself, is relatively small.
Right.
I don't think with the Patriots he was comfortable with their quarterback situation. Like I said, you do have Joe Mixon and Drake May could potentially, and I do stress potentially, see some quarterback controversy there, depending on how good or bad Drake May's played in his first two seasons. Could be, but I don't think he's comfortable with that. Plus, this is not your grandfather's. This is not our New England Patriots. I will say that we can't say your father's New England Patriots no more. This is not our New England Patriots. Right. You know, the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft regime that you knew was going to at least get you 12 wins and at least get you to an AFC championship every year. This is not their New England. This is not our New England Patriots anymore. This is a new regime, and I don't blame him for feeling that way. Hey, I might get all the money, but what am I going to win up here? And depending on what you give up, I might be in purgatory for the next 3 to 4 years, and I might not get me another contract after this. The main goal for these wide receivers and a lot of these players, but not just to get that one contract. I'm trying to get multiple contracts so I can literally be set for life. So I don't think he's comfortable with Amari Cooper being a part of that trade. That's one reason why I think he mixed that trade. And another reason is I don't think he's comfortable with being in New England under a new regime. And to be honest with you, I don't blame him. New regime, new quarterback, new everything. I don't think he's ready for that. Plus, with that division with Tua and Josh Allen in there right now, I'm not finna go up there just to go 4-12, get all of this money and be in purgatory.
Where would you like to see him go? Well, Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Magic City.
Yes, I know about that. But what about another? And we're gonna get into this other player, Washington, because a lot of people have talked about Washington, and because of Jayden Daniels. Remember, before they were former teammates at Arizona State, and I've told you before. Look, I wouldn't mind it, but at the same time, I need offensive linemen. You've always said quarterback can't throw behind his back, and if you're Washington, you have good wide receivers. You have Terry McLaurin. You have Jahan Dotson. You have De'Ami Brown. Yes, we need help with the tight end spot, but outside of offensive line, we got some really good pieces. Not to mention, we also brought in Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr., who's a very big X factor, and you talked about him last season. I don't know about Washington, but Atlanta, okay, could he be the number one or maybe even the number 2 wide receiver on the team? Are you still going to keep Kyle Pitts? Are you still going to keep the offense intact? And plus, Atlanta, this is the best opportunity to compete in the NFC now that you have Kirk Cousins.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. Plus, the thing is, I think Atlanta should look into this because Rondale Moore just got hurt.
Yes.
He's out for the season. So that could have potentially been our second receiver outside of Drake London. So realistically, I think Atlanta should put their head in the hat on that trade because guess what? The best opportunity for you to win, not to mention Brandon Aiyuk's contract is more than likely going to be 4 years. Within 2 years, Kirk Cousins are going to be back out of there. So there's going to be out of Atlanta. Let's just keep it all the way 100 on that one. He's going to probably be out of Atlanta. Michael Penix Jr. is going to be still on his rookie deal, and you can still surround him with weapons for as much as you need. So that's why I will continually beat the drum for Atlanta to make the trade. But another dark horse that really don't make a lot of trades, but I think they should, Green Bay.
You really think they should consider getting Brandon Aiyuk?
Yes, I do. I think that would be a hell of a combination between him, Jordan Love, and, not to mention they just got Josh Jacobs too. They just got Josh Jacobs in the offseason. So even if they have to come up off of Christian Watson, I think that they should deeply explore it. Because guess what? To have a true number one like that with a quarterback like a Jordan Love, I think there will be a dangerous combination on that offensive side of the ball. Plus, you're going to need all the help that you can get. This is a blood and guts division, the NFC North. It's a blood and guts division. You're going to have the Chicago Bears. They're going to be hell to deal with. The Minnesota Vikings, depending on how great, the quarterback position to be, they're going to be hell to deal with. If you really think about the Detroit Lions, they're not finished. They're not finished.
They're just getting started.
They're just getting started. So, especially if it keeps, they just re-signed their whole offensive line. Jahmyr Gibbs is coming back. We may even see him in a feature back situation, depending on if David Montgomery can hold up or not. So you have to think about that. This is a blood and guts division, and it's going to be that way for a long, long time, depending on how stable these quarterbacks are up in the NFC North. So I think if any team should consider that, it should be Green Bay realistically. We know they don't draft. We know they don't make a lot of trades. They don't make a lot of splashy free agency. But I really think if they can give up like a second, a fifth, and Christian Watson, I think they should explore that trade. I think that would be a hell of a trade for them to make, man.
Yeah. Although they got some really good young wide receivers, not just with Christian Watson, Hicks, and Romeo Dobbs and stuff, but I could potentially, I could see that. I mean, you can't be wrong with that. Speaking of, you mentioned, I mentioned Jayden Daniels. Let's talk about Jayden Daniels. He's going to start in the preseason game against the New York Jets. Look, I wouldn't say that hard on Jayden Daniels. I've been skeptical. And it has nothing to do with his talent. It has to do with his size. You've mentioned before, quarterback can't throw behind his back. People talked about how Sam Howell was struggling. Yeah, that is because of the offensive line. Now, some of that's on him because he was holding on to the football a little too long, but there were times that the offensive line wasn't protecting him. My concern with Jayden Daniels is behind that offensive line. Sam Howell, even though he's 6'1", he's a legit 220, 225. Jayden Daniels, on the other hand, is barely over 200. Tall, skinny dude. And the last time we had a quarterback like that, we had Robert Griffin III, former Heisman Trophy winner, number 2 overall pick. Was very exciting his first year as the starter, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, helped Washington make the playoffs, win the division, made the Pro Bowl that year. But since then, we didn't get that type of RG3. What do you think about Jayden Daniels?
I think Jayden Daniels has good potential in order to be a legitimate threat in this division. If you really, really look at this division, it revolves around the quarterbacks. When you look at Dak Prescott, when you look at Jalen Hurts, and, we got to give it the benefit of the doubt. We have to give Daniel Jones the benefit of the doubt. Everybody wants to give Justin Fields the benefit of the doubt. Let's keep that same energy with Daniel Jones because after all, he did lead them to a playoff berth and won a playoff game. Let's not get it twisted. And he's very, very elusive, and he could get the job done. Now, they're going to have to, give him a little bit more weapons. I think they did that with Malik Neighbors during the offseason, but I think that he can get the job done. But it's all going to be predicated on what they can do with that offensive line. Like I always say before, a quarterback can't throw on his back. And I know that firsthand because of all of the revolving door offensive linemen that the Atlanta Falcons used to have. But I really think that they need to get him an offensive line quick. Now, they did do some patchwork in the offseason, as you already know, you being a Commanders fan. But the thing is, you have to get some stability at that offensive line position so that you can keep him upright. I think that he could be a force in this division, especially when you consider that, I don't think Dak's going to be around in Dallas for too much longer. I could be
Same
reaching,
here.
but I don't think I could be reaching, but I don't think that Mr. Jones is going to pay him $70 million. I mean, that's way too much for a quarterback that has not even taken you to an NFC championship. Granted, you'll make the playoffs every year, but I need to go. The Cowboys standard, right, wrong, or indifference, is Super Bowls. And I think Jerry Jones wants a Super Bowl. I don't think he's going to get that with that.
I think Jayden Daniels will be fine. I also like the fact that Cliff Kingsbury is there, young guy who can work with the young quarterbacks. As long as they work with the offensive line, I'm okay. Again, I want to be clear. I have no problem with Jayden Daniels' talent. His size is a concern being behind Washington's O-line. So they have to do their due diligence in order to protect them. And he's going to have to find a way to get rid of the ball faster. Fortunately, he has talent on the outside with McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, De'Ami Brown. And also, if you're Washington, incorporate Brian Robinson Jr. more. Something that Eric Bieniemy didn't do a good job, which you mentioned last year. Eric Bieniemy, and you brought this up, was he trying to do it just to get a job as a head coach? Because we all know the NFL is about passing nowadays. And Eric Bieniemy was a former running backs coach. And EB, you saw some games in which Brian Robinson Jr. was effective, more than effective. The Falcons game last year, and then on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. Imagine what you can do when you incorporate him more. So I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to have to prove something like that. And if he wants to get another head coaching job in the NFL again, or a head coaching job somewhere else, because we saw what happened with Arizona. So he's got to have a lot to prove. Dan Quinn is our head coach now, former defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. The fact you don't have Montez Sweat, I told you about Montez. You don't have Chase Young. Last year, you had the worst defense in the NFL. Hopefully, can I ask you to be decent or solid? If you could be decent or solid, I'll live with that. But we can't. And also, too, with Emmanuel Forbes, I've heard that he's had a good offseason. He's put on some weight. And plus, he's going to have to deal with A.J. Brown. You got to deal with CeeDee Lamb. And you got to deal with Malik Neighbors. So this is not going to be easy for Washington. I don't expect much from Washington, but I do think that if Jayden Daniels, he's going to show you some flashes of what he can be. And I hope that he can show those types of flashes to the point in which we could say, could he be in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year or Rookie of the Year? So only time will tell. But I will keep a lookout on Washington. But let's talk about the NFC East. Let's talk about one Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones. He was asked about CeeDee Lamb's contract. His comments was, I don't have any urgency to get it done, to which CeeDee Lamb went on X and tweeted, LOL. Now, of course, CeeDee Lamb hasn't participating in training camp. He's obviously holding out for his contract. I'm reading it right here from an article from Sports Illustrated's Carl Rasmussen. It says it right here. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. As it stands, Lamb is due to earn $17.991 million under the fifth-year option of his rookie deal. He's been holding out of training camp as he angles to receive a contract extension in Dallas, though it doesn't seem Jones is going to be so swayed. Lamb will surely be looking to be compensated as one of the highest paid wide receivers in football and could reasonably seek north of $30 million per year. The Cowboys are also holding off on paying quarterback Dak Prescott, who, like Lamb, will be a free agent after the 2024 season. So, Champ. Oh, and we got a comment right here from RJD. Hola, amigos. Appreciate it, dude. Chip, Cowboys, they got to make some serious decisions because CeeDee's contract, as I mentioned, Dak will be a free agent next season, and you got to take care of Micah Parsons. So I think for Jerry, and this, of course, is casual as usual. We all know casual. But Champ, let me ask you this question. Jerry's got to make a serious decision. He could say, "Hey, I don't have any urgency to pay him, but you better, because how are you going to find another wide receiver in the draft or something to replace CeeDee Lamb? Plus, you're not going to lose Micah Parsons. I think you're going to have to move on from Dak Prescott. I would like to see Dak Prescott go somewhere else. Question is where? Maybe Pittsburgh or any type of team that's in contention to compete. I would like to see Dak Prescott go elsewhere because I've seen enough with Dak Prescott in Dallas. This is as far as he can go. And plus, Jerry doesn't want to pay him that amount of money. So I don't see that happening. Now, if it were Tony Romo, on the other hand, that's a different story. But I think he's going to have to move on from Dak Prescott. You're going to have to pay CeeDee his money. And heck, who knows? You mentioned Joe Milton. Maybe he could consider getting another quarterback because we haven't, I'm sorry, Chip, but Trey Lance just ain't it. And he hasn't been it. And, I try to remain hopeful on Trey Lance, but it doesn't seem like he's the guy for them going forward. So if you're Jerry, if you're Dallas, I suggest you move on from Dak, keep CeeDee, keep Micah, and then probably get somebody else, whether in a trade or in the draft. if I were Dallas, and plus you got a really good quarterback class in next year. What do you think?
Hey, in the great words of my grandfather, don't nothing come to a sleeper but a dream. And I believe that's what Trey Lance is, a sleeper. And I think it's a dream for us to think that he's any good. Number one, it's a dream it was a reach in order for the 49ers to go get him number 4 in the first place. That's number one. He was already in a win now situation up there in San Francisco. And when you have to ask yourself, if Kyle Shanahan can't get you to where you need to be, it's kind of time to start asking yourself, do I need to consider another profession? Kyle Shanahan made it to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. Let me say that again. He made it to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's had no Hall of Famers other than Matt Ryan as his quarterback. You saw what he did the first time he had a Hall of Famer.
Right.
He's made it to the playoffs with RG3. He's made it to the playoffs with Kirk Cousins. He's made it to the playoffs with Matt Ryan. So there's been a plethora of quarterbacks.
And Brock Purdy.
Yes, and Roethlisberger.
Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy, excuse me. My bad. I don't know why I said Roethlisberger. My bad. My bad to the audience. My fault. But he hasn't had but one Hall of Fame quarterback to speak of. One. That was Matty Ice. And you saw what he did when he had him for just 2 years. People don't realize he wasn't with Matt Ryan for more than 2 years. First year, he went 8-8. The second year, Super Bowl MVP. So when Kyle Shanahan gives up on you, it's kind of time for you to just say, like, wait a minute. Did we draft him too high? Was it a mistake? Because he really did play a lot in college. People say, well, he didn't get a fair shot. He really didn't play a lot in college. It was a reach to get him with the number 4 overall pick.
30.
I think they should take a shot at a Joe Mixon, depending on if they can get him for a 3rd or a 4th round pick, depending on how the Patriots develop him. With CeeDee, as far as CeeDee Lamb goes, we've seen these antics before with Jerry Jones. Remember the Zeke t-shirts? Zeke t-shirts? And he was joking around with him. It was just, it's theater in Dallas. You can't read too much into it. It's always theater. I got to keep the show going to let us remain relevant so that when we start losing, the show's still here. And this is just another ploy. This is why they're saying that they're not urgent. You need to be. This is a receiver that nearly won a Triple Crown last year.
Right.
So, I mean, and without CeeDee Lamb, you've had Brandon Cooks, who's a serviceable wide receiver, but not necessarily a world beater. And you had a plethora of other wide receivers who hasn't surpassed so much as 500 yards in a season. So, hey, you might want to go ahead and get that done, because, hey, there's a lot of teams around this league that'll be happy to pay a CeeDee Lamb next year. And they'll give him anything he asked for. So the thing is, you might want to be urgent in signing your wide receiver, your number 1 receiver, and your number 1 linebacker, which I will put him right up there with Derek Thomas as being one of the greatest pass rushers I've ever seen. And in Micah Parsons, excuse me. I can never
Micah Parsons.
Can never pronounce his name correctly. But you might want to sign those two and leave Dak where he is and leave well enough alone. Sometimes as a CEO of an organization, you have to realize when something is not working. You have to realize it. San Francisco realized that with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why they tried to go get Trey Lance. When he didn't work out, God bless them in order to be able to have a Brock Purdy. You saw what the St. Louis Rams did. The Los Angeles Rams now, what they did with Jared Goff. They didn't think that he could lead them far. So guess what? They went and said, you know what? You got us to the Super Bowl. We can't win with you. Come to find out, they was right. They went and got that Georgia Bulldog away from Detroit. Guess what? The rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been evidence of guys, of teams and organizations saying this is not working. They get rid of that quarterback that everybody's trying to hold on so tightly for nowadays, which I don't understand. It's just like football is a game of chess. Stop playing every piece like every piece hurts, especially the quarterback. Because the thing is, we've seen so many quarterbacks win with great teams around them and win Super Bowls. You didn't necessarily have to have a world beater, but the thing is, when you realize that this is not working, it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working. So the best thing that Jerry Jones and that organization can do is get CeeDee Lamb signed, get Micah Parsons signed, and hey, if you want $70 million, you want that NBA type of salary of a contract, and you haven't gotten us so much as to an NFC championship, I suggest you go elsewhere because you're not going to get it in Dallas. You've been in the league almost 9 years. You've had a plethora of talent come through Dallas. Say what you want to about Jerry Jones and that Dallas organization. It's all theater, but it's been a replenishment of talent. A replenishment constantly. So guess what? It's not like you've been without talent. It's not like you've been without great wide receivers, great offensive linemen, great defenses. It's not like you've been without that. And each time you have failed. 5 out of the 9 years that Dak has been there, his defense and offense has not been outside of the top 10.
Right.
So and if you give any other quarterback that, we would be calling that out every single year. Because that's what we talk about with other teams. That's what we talk about with other quarterbacks. He didn't have a good defense. He didn't have a good offense. He didn't have enough weapons. Okay, 5 out of the 9 years that you've been in the league, your offense and your defense has been no less than in the top 10. 1 year, it fell out of the top. 1 year, your defense fell to the top 11.
Right.
So it's time for you to perform. And I don't think he's it. I mean, everybody wants to hold tightly to their quarterbacks nowadays. I think that's a mistake, but especially considering how much these quarterbacks are being paid based off potential alone. Potential. So, and when you haven't shown much promise of that potential, guess what? It's time for you to move on. Sign CeeDee Lamb, sign Parsons, hey, and go get you another quarterback. You got a hell of a quarterback class coming out, and you got some hidden gems in this league. If you're going to pay somebody off potential, hell, go get you a quarterback, kind of like what Jacksonville did with Mark Brunell, kind of like what St. Louis did with Kurt Warner. There's some hidden gems out there that can get you to a Super Bowl. We've seen it one too many times.
To me, Champ, it seems like they just want to hold on to Dak Prescott because they feel like, well, if we lose him, where else can we find someone that's better? You know, we've had Flash and we've had BRF had this discussion. They would move on from CD because they feel like wide receiver, they can get wide receivers just like that. And plus, can you get our elite wide receivers are going to win you a championship? No, you're not going to. No, you're going to need a quarterback in order for you to deliver the goods. But we've seen Dak Prescott now. This is now his 9th year. This is the final year of his 4-year extension that he signed in 2021. And we've seen Dak good, but just not great. This is as far as he can go. I believe if you put Dak Prescott in different circumstances, let's say if you put him in the Pittsburgh Steelers, Champ, I really do think they have a good enough chance. Mike Tomlin, to this day, still has not had a losing record under his watch. And plus, Russ and Justin Fields are there, but it's only temporarily. You put him with a good enough defense. You put him with some playmakers. Why not? Why not Dak? Okay, let's see Dak in different circumstances. Champ, honestly, if Atlanta didn't pay Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, I wouldn't mind him going to Atlanta. Although you may not like it. But why?
To be honest with you, if you really look at the Steelers and the weapons that they have right now, what is the biggest difference between the weapons that he has in Dallas last couple of years and Pittsburgh? The only difference is you don't have a TJ Watt. That's the only difference. You have receivers. You had running backs. They're offering you the same thing. And another thing is, guess what? You might be in an even worse situation when you go to Pittsburgh. They've had 6 offensive coordinators over the past 7 years. And guess what? They just hired my old head coach in Arthur Smith. How you think that's going to work out this year with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, considering what he just did down there in Atlanta?
I know, champ, but here's the thing. Would you rather him in Pittsburgh, or would you rather still want him in Dallas in Mike McCarthy? I've said it before, champ. You're not going to win a championship with Jerry Jones. Doesn't matter who you have at quarterback. It doesn't matter the talent. Jerry Jones will get in the way. And look, Mike McCarthy, I've said what I've said before about him, man. There's nothing about him, like from a leadership standpoint. There have been issues with his clock management. Now, I will give him credit as far as him doing a better job with the play calling since he took over for Kellen Moore. But there is no chance in hell you winning a Super Bowl under these circumstances with the Dallas Cowboys. And they brought back Ezekiel Elliott, but okay, you should have gotten Blake Corum, the running back from Michigan. Unfortunately for Dallas, he's with the Los Angeles Rams, and now he's paired up with Kieran Williams. And the Rams, I wouldn't sleep on the Rams. They could actually be a team to consider in the NFC, even though they've lost Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald has retired. But when I look at Dak, champ, if not Pittsburgh, where else could you see him going? Because 49ers, are they going to pay Brock Purdy? Jets, we know with the situation with Aaron Rodgers, where you want him to go to? You want him to go to Vegas?
I wouldn't mind him going to Vegas, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't have a quarterback situation. I mean, Devontae Adams, he needs some solid quarterback play on his side of the ball. I mean, I wouldn't mind that happening. My thing is this. You put him in Pittsburgh, that's the same situation that he's in Dallas right now. You have a number one receiver. You had number one receivers. You had great running backs. You had great defenses. It's the same situation. Now, granted, I will give you credit on this. The main thing that you have not had in Dallas is a coach that's going to light a fire up on you. And I think Mike Tomlin, to your credit, to your credit, can do that with Dak. So I wouldn't mind him seeing him. My thing is, it's the same situation. It's the same set of circumstances. You have a dual back system like you had last year with Zeke and Tony Pollard. Now you going to another one with Ty Warren and Najee Harris. Depending on if they get Brandon Aiyuk, you have a George Pickens and a Brandon Aiyuk. Then you have that monster on the other side of the ball and TJ Watt and that defense. So, hey, it's the same circumstances you're in already. Now, like I said, to your credit, what you're saying, the major difference is a coach is going to light a fire up on you, because I don't think Mike McCarthy likes that spark like a Mike Tomlin would. I don't think.
And not only that, the owners, I mentioned about that. You ain't winning with Jerry Jones running the show.
Mm-hmm.
That's another problem that I have with Dallas. And people talk about sacrifice. The players, they got to sacrifice. Well, damn, what about Jerry? Jerry wants credit, and he wants to run the show. He's doing interviews. He has his own radio show and stuff like that. The problem is Jerry Jones is too involved with the Dallas Cowboys, which is why, champ, after when they lost that playoff game to the Green Bay Packers last season, are they going to hire Bill Belichick? Are they going to hire Jim Harbaugh? I was like, ain't no way in hell that going to happen. Because at the end of the day, Jerry running the show. Do you really think Jerry Jones is going to sit back and allow people to do their job? Knowing how much money he makes, knowing how much authority that he has? Nah. So to me, and plus, champ, we mentioned this before. Jerry tried to draft Johnny Manziel back in 2014. But fortunately, Stephen Jones talked him out of it and said, no, we going with Zach Martin, who's going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame eventually. So I'm sorry, champ. I mean, okay, Pittsburgh, I understand Arthur Smith. He was horrible as an offensive coordinator. No one would know that better than you. and you were done with him. Even after that season finale game last year against the New
The
Orleans
same.
Saints. Matter of fact, you were probably done with him in that road game against the Carolina Panthers when y'all could barely score. I don't even know if y'all scored a touchdown in that game.
The defense held the Carolina Panthers to 9 points. 9 points in the Monsoon Bowl, what I call it. We held Bryce Young to 9 points and still lost that game. Now, you name me one defense. You got held to 9 points, 3 field goals, and you could not generate a touchdown and a field goal in order to beat a rookie quarterback on a team that is as dysfunctional as any team I have ever seen in the Carolina Panthers last year, I would say. So that's when I was done with Arthur Smith. Plus, I mean,
Desmond Ridder. What have
yeah,
you said about Desmond Ridder?
he couldn't pass gas if you fed him beans all night long. So the thing is, the thing is, you didn't have to be so heavily reliant on the quarterback. You had 2 beasts at the running back position. Use them. You underutilized Bijan Robinson. You underutilized Tyler Aguilar. How many pieces can you get handed and just say, hey, I can't do you was handed a lot of pieces on a silver platter. And when you saw it wasn't working with Desmond Ridder, you saw he was a turnover machine. Why did you turn back to him? I understand the injury, but good God. Why did you turn back to him and keep trying to turn back to him? You should have kept Heineke in there once he got better. So the thing is this. Arthur Smith, I have no faith in him. I think he will make Dak a lot worse. I think he's going to. Now, to his credit, it's going to be interesting to see what you do with some serviceable quarterbacks because Desmond Ridder was not that guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how you coach up Russell Wilson and Justin Fields in that offense that you have. Sort of, because this is the same offense that you had in San Francisco. Number 1 receiver, George Pickens. Tight end in Big O, Darnell Washington. From where? UGA. Ty Warren, Najee Harris. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing you had in Atlanta. So let's see what you do now that you're in a more stable organization and one of the more storied organizations like a Pittsburgh. Because if you can't do it there with all of these weapons that you have now and you have serviceable quarterbacks now, then what can you do?
Yeah. But I do believe they're going to take care of CD because at the end of the day, you got to pay him. And if you don't pay him, are you going to have to pay him even more or are you going to let him walk out? Same thing with Micah. Dak, you've seen enough body of work with Dak to say this is as far as he can go. CD and Micah, on the other hand, they're young. They're around the same age. They're 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
Dak's 31 years old, even though they're still relatively young. But at the same time, you've seen him from where he was as a rookie to where he is now. I think he's a good quarterback, at best top 10, but that's about it. Not much with Dak Prescott. But I'm reading a comment here from Casual. We discussed this earlier. I'm watching football intensively this year, watching the Texans versus Steelers game. How good can the Texans be among the league? And I think the reason why he's asking that question is because A, he's trying to pay more attention to football. We know Casual, his basketball knowledge, and B, he from Houston. Am I right? He is from Houston.
Yeah, he's from Texas, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he from Texas. Casual, Champ and I, we talked about how great Houston has been. The off season that they've had. Look at the off season moves that they've had. The Stephon Diggs trade, Daniel Hunter, Joe Mixon. Okay, Tank Dell is coming back, and you just saw him score a touchdown in the preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. When healthy, I think Houston, they're going to be explosive. And I think CJ Stroud is going to be in discussion for the MVP. Now, their schedule, though, is going to be difficult. It's no joke with that schedule. And if you look at the Houston Texans schedule right here, looking it up right now, it is no joke because if you look at it, they've got They start the season on the road against the Colts, who last year barely beat them in order to clinch the division and secure a playoff spot. This is without Anthony Richardson. They had to
Yes.
go with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Then week 2, Caleb Williams is coming to H-Town to face the Houston Texans. So that's going to be a show. Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud. Then you get Texans at Vikings, Jaguars at Texans. I do see the Texans winning that game because Champ and I, we probably done with Trevor Lawrence, and I just don't trust the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. Now, October 6th, big game, Bills at Texans.
Ooh.
That's a big one. Then after October 13th, they got Texans at Patriots. The following week, October 20th, Texans at Packers. Then next week, Colts at Texans. Then Texans at Jets. Lions at Texans. Texans at Cowboys. And who knows? Titans at Cowboys. Titans at Texans. Because let's not underestimate the Tennessee Titans now. So they got some really tough games. And in December, if you look at the month of December, they got December 15th. They have a home game against the Miami Dolphins. December 21st, 4 days before Christmas, they face the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. Christmas Day, home game against the Baltimore Ravens.
Ugh.
And then January 5th, they end the season against the Tennessee Titans on the road. So this is a really tough schedule for the Houston Texans. But they actually have a shot. I love what they've done with DeMeco Ryans as the head coach. He's definitely helped out the defense. Will Anderson with Daniel Hunter. Oh, that's going to be great. CJ Stroud, I've said before, this is the quarterback you can work with. I thought he was the best quarterback out of the draft. Champ, you talked about the story against that Georgia game in the semifinals, to which you had, 3 heart attacks in that game?
3 heart attacks, 2 strokes. And so, yeah, because he was lighting us. He was, like I said, and I hate to be repetitive, he was lighting us up like a Christmas tree. And if it had not been for, and I'm just going to go ahead and admit, if it had not been for Marvin Harrison getting benched for the rest of that game because they were scared that he's going to get hurt again, which I don't blame him, we probably would have lost that game. It wouldn't have been a repeat. But because CJ Stroud was lighting us up, I mean, it was. I was like, wow. So CJ Stroud's no joke, man. Now that schedule is no joke either. But with the coaching of a DeMeco Ryans and that coaching staff, and with all of the, they revamped the team for what they needed it to be because they knew what was coming with that schedule. They was going to have a world-beating team in order to compete with a world-beating schedule. On paper, this is a world-beating team. And on paper, that is a world-beating schedule. And you got to think about this. This may very well be the AFC South. We've both been on record saying this. This may very well be the beginning of a new blood and guts division, much like the NFC North and the AFC North. This could be the beginning of a new blood and guts division, depending on how these quarterbacks play in down south.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, we got Stroud, Anthony Richardson coming back. Trevor Lawrence has a lot to prove now that he got his contract. So, and plus Will Levis, we gotta wait. I mean, he showed some promise last year. So the AFC South is really exciting. Champ, before we talk about the Team USA victory against Serbia, is there one player heading into the 2024 season you're excited to watch?
You know what? I'm going to be a homer this one. Well, I'm going to pick 2 players.
Okay.
Both of them are from our teams. I cannot wait to see Jayden Daniels and how he plays in this NFC East. I think he's elusive. I think he's one hell of a quarterback. I think if it hadn't been for him getting injured in the Alabama game, they would have very well went back to the SEC championship and faced off against my Georgia Bulldogs, where his stock would have went through the roof. Unfortunately, it was not to be. Another guy I'm keeping my eye out on, Kyle Pitts. Because the thing is, I am ready to see. They already said they're making you a big part of that offense. Let's see what you're going to do with it. Let's see how you've recovered from those injuries. Let's see if we can have another breakout season outside of your rookie year. Let's see how great you can be now. You have a quarterback that can get you the ball. You have we all know how good Drake London is. We all know how good Bijan Robinson is. Let's see how good you can actually be this year. Let's see if you can finally have that breakout season and show that promise that we know you have. And don't forget about Blake Corum as well. I've always been high on Blake Corum.
Keon Coleman from the Buffalo Bills, I want to see, because now he's going to be their perhaps number one wide receiver now that Stephon Diggs is gone. He and Josh Allen, they've been doing excellent. And another player I'm interested in seeing, for me, whether offense or defense, Montez Sweat from the Chicago Bears, because even though we talk about Caleb Williams a lot and the weapons in the offense, can Montez Sweat do it again? I said it before, champ. I told you I did not want the Commanders to trade Montez Sweat. If I had a choice between Chase Young or Montez Sweat, I would have kept Montez and trade Chase Young, because Chase Young, we didn't pick up his fifth-year option. Plus, he had durability issues. And I was skeptical on giving him a long-term contract, because I felt like if he stayed with the Commanders, had a great season, okay, do I have to pay him huge amount of money, kind of like what the Giants did with Daniel Jones? I didn't want to do that. Montez, on the other hand, he's a different type of playmaker. He can bull rush. He can get after the quarterback. He's long. He's athletic. Last year, I said he's capable of having a double-digit sack season. He did. He made the Pro Bowl. I really do think that Chicago, I'm not going to go as far as Nick Wright, because he said he has Chicago coming out of the NFC. That's a hot take. Yeah, Nick Wright, he actually said that. I'll actually send you the clip and everything. Go ahead.
Come on. Wait a minute. Now, is he talk about the division or he talk about the NFC?
The NFC.
I don't know what is up with these reporters and these super hot takes like that. There's no way he's making it out of that conference. That division, okay. That conference, no.
Right.
I mean,
I'll send you the clip. I will send you the clip.
I will give it to him. Look, we've seen a lot of good commodities as far as rookie quarterbacks are concerned. We saw Dan Marino. He led his team to almost an AFC championship his rookie year. You saw Matt Ryan. He led his team to a playoff berth. You saw Joe Flacco. He led his team to the AFC championship. We saw Ben Roethlisberger. He led his team to an NFC championship and a 15-1 record. None of them, as talented as they were, made it out of their conference, because it's going to be a point where that rookie is going to play like a rookie. And it's always in the most inopportunistic game they need to play like a rookie. It never fails.
Right. And I just think reporters, they're just saying this because of high takes. You know how it is, champ. People just want to say high takes for clicks, baits, and stuff like that. But I don't agree with Nick Wright. If he wanted to make an argument for Caleb Williams winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, making the Pro Bowl, making the playoffs, or hell, even winning a playoff game, that would be more realistic. But to come out of the NFC when you're the number one overall pick as a rookie, nah. That I don't know. I don't know what he was smoking or drinking, but hey, he off of that one.
Hey, in the great words of the great Chuck D, that stuff is really bad. I'm talking about bass.
Let's talk about some basketball real quick before we talk about some entertainment stuff. What were your thoughts about Team USA's victory against Serbia? I mean, they came back from a double-digit lead, and Steph Curry was cooking 36 points. Joel Embiid late in the end played well, and LeBron, even though at 39 years old, he'll be 40 in a couple of months, still defeating Father Time.
Hey, they had me scared for a minute. I mean, I was slick scared, and not because they didn't have enough talent, because you knew eventually, but you knew the media, if they would have lost that game, was going to eat them alive.
Can you imagine what Gilbert Arenas would have said
Oh
when he
my
saw the backlash that he got?
Yes, he was going to eat them. He and some of those reporters were going to eat them alive, and they was going to. And only thing you were going to hear about, well, the '92 Dream Team when they did that. That's the only thing that they were going to hear was the ghost of the '92 Dream Team was going to rear its ugly head again. So I think it's good that they come back, that they came back. One thing I don't think people are realizing is this. And I brought this up a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it was on the Highlight of Friday Nights or another show. People got to realize this. When the original Dream Team played, only 9 NBA players were on the other teams. In this one, 61 NBA players are playing on the other Olympic teams.
Wow.
So they're actually playing, you're playing against your peers in a single elimination tournament. It's like the play-in, but the stakes are a hell of a lot higher. So the thing is, for people who are talking about, the Dream Team, no, you can't say that, because the thing is, you have to ask yourself this. The Dream Team was great. They had the biggest name and some of the greatest players of all time. But you have to admit, they were ahead of their time. And the playing field was not as level as it is right now. SGA was an MVP candidate playing for the Canadian team in the NBA. SGA was. Jalen Brunson made the playoffs with the New York Knicks, was a focal point of the New York Knicks. Just signed that big, huge contract and took less money to try to win a championship with those. And that's just to name a few. Jokic was on that Serbia team. 2-time league MVP, and many will say a top 5 center of all time. He plays in the NBA. Those Dream Team guys that were playing, and I saw that team. I was young enough. I'm old enough to have seen that team. We both are. That team wasn't playing on an equal playing field that these guys, that the Avengers team is playing on right now. You are essentially playing against your peers in the NBA in a single elimination tournament. And I think, hey, it's exciting basketball. Let's not discredit this team. They came back from a deficit, against a former 2-time league MVP in Jokic. And the thing is, he's not through winning. He's not through winning MVPs. So for people to try to discredit that team is flat out a farce. Now, granted, that gave us all a scare. We thought the Avengers was going to be overtaken by Thanos with the snap this time, but unfortunately, it was not to be. I am excited to see them play Wemby and the French team. I am excited to see that. You have the old guard and the young players, the Avengers, going up against Godzilla. It's that time. I can't wait to see it, man. Give a lot of credit to the women's basketball team, too. They flat out dominated. They haven't lost a game in the Olympics. They're 77-3 in the Olympics. They only lost 3 games.
And shout outs to all the female players, especially A'ja Wilson.
Yes.
There's a reason why she's gonna win the MVP. She don't win the MVP. Something was wrong with that picture, man. And USA, man, basketball, men's basketball. I mean, even though you won this one, but at the same time, it was kind of scary.
Nail biter.
So, is this going to be a sign of things to come when you're going up against France? Possibly.
It's competitive. Like I said, people keep talking about, the Dream Team, but I think this is the most competitive that the Olympic basketball, especially on the men's side, has been in a long time. Like I said, you're playing your peers in the NBA. the original Dream Team wasn't doing that. They wasn't playing their peers. You're playing other countries that wasn't up to speed on American basketball at that point. Back then, the NBA was king. Nowadays, you're seeing players that come from Europe. They're better than the players that were developed in the NBA right off the rip. You saw that with Jokic, and you saw that with Giannis, and you saw that with Luka. Mm-hmm. So these guys right here are playing the best of the best. So for people to try to discredit them is crazy. And even if the thing is, the past always rears its ugly head when they don't think the present is doing just as good. But these guys are playing the cream of the crop. They're playing against their peers and their NBA peers. So guess what? Hey, it was a nail biter, but guess what? It was against your peers. Granted, it was against another country, but it was against your peers. You're playing against the two-time MVP and a
three-time
MVP and a Finals MVP. You really didn't think that he was going to come out there and give it his best? Come on, man.
Especially going up against a big like Embiid.
Yes. He didn't get a chance to do that all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, definitely. But, man, I can't wait to watch that Team USA France game. Thank God I have the weekend off so I can watch that one. Let's talk about another great event. I know you, BRF, and Flash talked about it on y'all pod. SummerSlam. What were your thoughts about the SummerSlam?
Oh, man, the biggest party of the summer struck again, man. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Nick Khan, all those great writers, man, they outdid themselves on SummerSlam, man. So this is the best SummerSlam I've seen since SummerSlam 98. 98 plays on my heartstrings because that was, Stone Cold versus The Undertaker, Madison Square Garden, The Rock versus Triple H in the ladder match, a very, very stacked card. So that was one of the best SummerSlams I've seen since that time. I put it right up there with 98. Hey, plus with the return of the Tribal Chief, the Tribal Chief, it was always good to see the Tribal Chief. Man, to see him come back, man, and for Cody to retain, not to mention, man, Gunther.
Yeah.
Gunther is going to be one of the greatest heels of all time. Watch and see. In the great words of BRF, he's like an evil Bret Hart.
You think he can be a better heel than CM Punk?
Yes. My thing is, the thing about Gunther, he wins so differently as a heel. When you think about heels, you think about a lot of funny business when you see heels winning. You think about people breaking the rules. You think about people,
creativity.
Yeah. You think about a lot of other stuff. When you think about Gunther as a heel, he's going out there beating people clean and having these long, dragged out, great wrestling matches with everybody. So when you think about Gunther, you think about him as a heel winning clean. Hey, no outside interference, no smarts, no funny business. He's going out there flat out dominating the competition. So the thing is, he's winning so differently as a heel. So for him to be winning like that is flat out amazing. I mean, Gunther is definitely going to be up there. I'm glad they put him over.
You mentioned about the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. What is your favorite Roman Reigns moment?
Favorite Roman Reigns moment, man. It has to be when he came back from his illness.
Yes.
It has to be when he came back from his illness. For him to be facing that type of adversity, for him, because that wasn't his first bout with it. Remember, his NFL career ended because of that. Because remember, he, I don't cheer for the other team in Georgia, but he did play for Georgia Tech. So he did play for Georgia Tech, went on to be a standout, made the NFL, played for the Minnesota Vikings for a short period of time. Unfortunately, that disease killed his career, and he didn't know what was going to happen. And for him to have to relinquish everything and for him to come back from that is amazing. We've seen with Roman Reigns, we've seen so many great moments in a short period of time, in the last 10 years. You've seen so many great moments in such a short period of time. And I think that and him turning heel was probably the two greatest moments, because remember, everybody was booing him at a certain point because it felt like they was just trying to shove him down our throats. And when they finally turned him heel, that's when we got the best Roman Reigns that we could get. So it has to be when he came back from his illness and when he turned heel. Those are the best two moments I could think of for Roman Reigns, man. Shout out to the Tribal Chief, man. Hey, shout out to Brandon from the block. I will finally admit Roman Reigns is top 5. There you go. I said it, Brandon.
Time?
Top 5 all time. I give you that, Brandon. That's shout out to you, Brandon.
Okay, so who's in your top 5?
Who's my top 5? Oh, all right. Oh, on the spot. On site. Good.
I know you got Taker.
Taker, Flair, Rock, Austin, Roman.
And Flash says very similar to Edge.
Yeah.
All right. My favorite Roman Reigns moment, well, you stole all the good ones. Great minds think alike.
Yes, indeed.
Probably the one when he won the championship the first time. I mean, I love when he Superman punched Mr. McMahon and then to beat Sheamus. I mean, I was kind of happy about that, him beating the Authority. The WrestleMania he had with Triple H, though, before him and Triple H doing those promos, I loved it. The physicality of them going back and forth when all the wrestlers were restraining them from. But Roman Reigns, to your point, when he turned heel, because when he tried to be babyface, it just didn't work out. But when he became a heel, you saw a different Roman, more creativity, and of course, Paul Heyman.
Yes.
No, I mean, say what you want about Paul Heyman. Look, Jim Cornette, he and Paul Heyman have their differences, but he ain't gonna accuse him of being incompetent.
Exactly.
And Paul Heyman knows exactly what to do when it comes to utilizing talent. Flash said he's not top 5 yet. And Coach Dante was good. Dante, shout out to Dante. Go check out his content, especially with the Rockets and the Texans. He knows his football, knows his basketball. Flash, the reason why I don't think Flash has him top 5 yet, because he still feels like he needs to see more. And plus, Flash, he loves himself some Shawn Michaels. Didn't he say Shawn Michaels is his GOAT?
Yeah, Shawn Michaels is Flash's GOAT, man, which I don't blame him for that, man. Shawn Michaels, they call him Mr. WrestleMania for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like, we talk about The Undertaker in the street, but we talk about Shawn Michaels and those drag-out matches that he had at WrestleMania just as much. And the thing is, when you really think about WrestleMania, he had some of the greatest matches, and guess what? He didn't even have to win them. And when you think about the match he had with Diesel, he didn't win it. When you think about the match that he had with Stone Cold, he didn't win it. When you think about the match that he had with The Undertaker, he didn't win it. The match that he had with Kurt Angle, he didn't win it. So when you are able to make people remember you and you are on the losing end of the spectrum, that says more about you than winning probably ever could.
Do you think those matches, in your opinion, champ, were better than the Iron Man match that he won against Bret the Hitman Hart?
The one that he had against Kurt Angle was better than the one he had with Bret Hart. I think the one that he had with Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21 was better than the one that he had with Bret Hart. I mean, the feud was there, the animosity was there. It probably didn't hit as hard as it did with Bret Hart, but you knew that chemistry that him and Kurt Angle had in the ring. I wish I could have saw more of it. You know, I hate that Kurt Angle ended up going to TNA after his first stint with the WWE. But I wish we could have seen more of Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels. You know, we saw that Backlash again, Vengeance, where Shawn ended up avenging that loss at WrestleMania. But I wish we could have saw like a 2 to 3 year feud of that. That would have been some hell of a matches in order to behold. Man, I think that Kurt Angle match, I put it right up there, even surpassing that Iron Man match. That was the one that I put up there, man. Plus, you got to think about that Undertaker match.
Yes,
That Undertaker match is top 3 all time for Shawn Michaels.
I would say for me with Shawn Michaels, that Iron Man match for me, as Vince McMahon said, the boyhood dream came true. I mean, I just love the entrance. I mean, for him to go over an hour with a great technician in Bret Hart, and another great match that Shawn Michaels had, SummerSlam 2002, coming back with the back injury. And look, Shawn Michaels, when oh my God, it looked like it never changed. And then the Survivor Series, when he won the World Heavyweight Championship, I think, wasn't it the first Elimination Chamber match?
The very first
Yeah.
Elimination Chamber. I mean, I had never seen anything like that before. The Elimination Chamber, I mean, we all seen the 6-pack challenge years earlier at Unforgiven in 1999 with Triple H, the British Bulldog, and just to name a few. But we never seen an Elimination Chamber. So it's like, it's not Hell in a Cell. So how's this going to work? So, for him to win the first ever of that kind, to beat a Kane, to beat a Chris Jericho, to beat a Booker T, to beat a Triple H, that's the short of amazing, man. Plus, coming back from that back injury that he had in 1998, 4 years later, and you didn't miss a beat, then to go on, and that's what's so special about Shawn Michaels, to Flash's credit, shout out to Flash. A lot of the great matches that he had, he didn't have to win them. Think about the 3 Stages of Hell match that he had with Triple H at Armageddon that same year.
Yes.
Hell of a match. He didn't even win
Royal Rumble, 2004.
He didn't even win it.
Right.
Even that WrestleMania match with the other guy, with Triple H and the other guy, we know we can't say his name. He didn't win it. So the thing is, when you lose and you leave more of an impact in the mind of everybody than the winner of that match, that's saying something about your ability. And I think that's why Flash got him at his top 5 and as his GOAT. So big shout out to Flash, but I don't blame him for having Shawn Michaels as his number 1.
Yeah, he says it right here. Hogan, HBK, Austin, Taker, Flair, not to mention Cena, Bret Hart, Bruno, etc. And then the other WrestleMania match was iconic, Shawn versus Flair. That was another great one. Y'all know me as far as GOATs. Brandon has John Cena as the GOAT, so does Casual, so does Mario Knows Best, Trent, Hot Take, Katie. Most of them have John Cena as the GOAT.
Yeah.
Although he did it for a short period of time, Stone Cold. I mean, it just tells you just how great he was as a wrestler, but it also tells you just how incompetent WCW was when Eric Bischoff was running the show. He goes to ECW. Paul Heyman finally gave him the opportunity to allow Austin to say whatever he wanted. Again, another testament just to the greatness of Paul Heyman. That's why he rightfully, richfully deserved the Hall of Fame. Deservedly so. And then when he went to WWE, they gave him the craziest nicknames, champ, Ringmaster. And then when he tried to develop the name Stone Cold Steve Austin, in which he got from his wife at the time. And then watching the HBO documentary on Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, they gave him all those other nicknames: Fang McFrost, Otto Von Ruthless, Ice Dagger, Chili McFreeze. And then for him to be Stone Cold and to go up against Vince McMahon, although he's viewed negatively nowadays, but Mr. McMahon is arguably the greatest heel. And for Stone Cold Steve Austin at his prime, I mean, the reason why I had him as the GOAT, because again, he took the WWF to another level, because at that point they were almost done when they were going up against WCW. And for him to help them get over the ratings, the merchandises, the sales, still to this day, I guarantee you, if he went to a WrestleMania, and there's a possibility he could come in WrestleMania next year because it's at Nevada where he lives. I thought he would still live in Texas because that's where he's from, but no, he lives in Nevada. Got his Broken Skull podcast, does a lot of business things there. If there's a WrestleMania in Nevada, don't tell me for 1 second they wouldn't want Stone Cold And imagine when you hear that glass break.
Ding. You know what? Something I never brought up before. I remember you saying just a few minutes ago how incompetent WCW was. Edge, Undertaker, Stone Cold, Triple H, Chris Jericho, The Giant, the
Eddie
other guy,
Guerrero.
Guerrero, the other guy, Guerrero's friend. Even Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, all 10 of those guys started where? WCW.
CW.
And they couldn't do anything with them. They had to go to WWE in order to get some training when it comes to Hall and Nash in order for them to be used properly when they came back. That just goes to show you how inadequate WCW was and how it goes to show you that they didn't have an eye for talent, number one. Because when those are 10 huge superstars. Those are not 10 water-the-mill guys. Those are 10 huge generational superstars that you couldn't develop. And remember how much shade that a lot of reporters threw, a lot of wrestling insiders threw on the Radicals, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, and the other guy. Remember how much shade they got them? They used to call them the band of the small guys. So for you to lose out on all of those major superstars and they go straight to Vince McMahon and he skyrockets them, that just goes to show you a testament of how you knew WCW didn't know what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. Flash says Austin's peak was higher than Hogan's. However, Hogan's longevity and other factors make him higher on the list than Austin. I can't be mad at that because, again, that's the only argument people have made against Austin. If Austin had been there longer, you could make more of a case for him as the GOAT, but you can't go wrong with making an argument for the GOAT for Austin. Some websites, they have him as the GOAT. Matter of fact, with Bleacher Report, even though he was number 2, Bret Hart was number 1. I think it was what Bleacher Report, champ.
Yeah, that was with Bleacher Report. I mean, I think you put him ahead of Bret Hart. My thing is Bret Hart was cool, but
I think I know why, champ. Because you, sorry to interrupt you, champ, but you've made the argument: Hart, Austin, WrestleMania 13, the beginning of the Attitude Era, and plus Bret Hart, the best there was, the best there is, the best there ever would be. In the ring, can you name someone better than Bret Hart as far as in the ring? And when mic skills, okay, Bret, although later on against Shawn Michaels, he had better mic skills later on against Shawn Michaels. But in the ring, and BRF is the only one, he's made the argument, rest his soul, Owen Hart better than Bret Hart. Can you name anyone better than Bret?
The other guy, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think he was a little bit better than Bret Hart, although he trained in a dungeon. I think Eddie Guerrero, I think he was better. And I think that Ric Flair. Ric Flair.
Flash says, I think Bret Hart's career is overlooked now because of how he's known for complaining about Goldberg, which I mentioned on your show the other time, remember? And then Champ, shout out to our boy Brandon from the blog. What's up, PSP and Champ?
What's going on?
You want to respond to the Bret Hart one about Goldberg? Because again, look, Goldberg can't do nothing about it. He's apologized countless times for what happened. Bret, he's never gonna let this go.
You know what? When you look back in '97, where he had that kind of a crybaby moniker, you got to ask yourself, was that really him? Because if you go back and look at the documentary, I will give Goldberg this. When you tell me, watch for the kick, and I still get hit. Because you see it and the thing is, it wasn't just he was saying that, you see it in the ring. He said that, you read his lips, watch for the kick. So the thing is, accidents, when you step between those ropes in anything as far as the square circle is concerned, whether that be boxing, whether that be especially wrestling, bad things do happen and accidents happen. And the thing is, look, what I don't like about the whole situation between him and Goldberg is you forgave Shawn Michaels. You forgave the people who really, really did you bad and got you out of the WWE. You forgave them. You forgave them. So guess what? Keep that same energy with an accident. It was an accident. Accidents do happen every single day. And if you were forgiving to someone who knowingly wronged you, if you can have that same forgiving energy and bring it all back to someone, to two people in Vince McMahon, the WWE, and Shawn Michaels, to people you knew knowingly wronged you, knowingly, you know it for a fact that they wronged you. You know this. It's been documented that they've wronged you. If you can have that forgiving and graceful energy with those guys, how about having it with the guy who's openly apologized to you in public every single time that it's been brought up about him unfortunately ending your career at a certain point?
Not to mention the fact that Goldberg had zero experience of wrestling. Yeah. Remember, he used to play football, college football for your former Georgia Bulldogs. And remember, champ, he used to play in the NFL for a little bit for the Atlanta Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why I think he became a wrestler wasn't his accountant that told him, hey, you need to get into the wrestling.
Yeah. And he knew DDP as well.
Yeah.
You know, he knew Diamond Dallas Page, which he doesn't get a lot of credit in the wrestling business for the people that he helped. You know, big shout out to Diamond Dallas Page for people who he helped get in the wrestling business, not to mention the people that he helped outside of the wrestling business in order to get their health back. So big ups to DDP. Yes. You know, Diamond Dallas Page. It's not the RKO, it's the Diamond Cutter, by the way. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
And Eric Bischoff, he mentioned this. Wrestling is like a dance, and the person in that senior position is the one who makes certain decisions. And that's Bret Hart. You know, people have said Bret Hart is the type of guy that can have a match with a broom and make the broom look like a star. That's what Eric Bischoff said on the documentary on Goldberg on WWE Legends. And he felt that Bret should have taken a certain level of responsibility, as well as Bill, for that fight.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of like me and you having an argument. And you say, hey, I didn't mean it like that. If you say something. And I say, you know what? I'm going to hold a grudge forever. But out of the same mouth, I'm over here hanging out with somebody who I know for a fact did something intentionally to hurt me, to hurt my family. If you really think about it, if they wasn't so adamant about the Montreal screw job happening and getting him out of the WWE, guess what? We may have very well saw Vince McMahon and Bret Hart team up against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Imagine the revenue that would have made during the Attitude Era. We had already saw it before in 96 at the Survivor Series. We saw it before at WrestleMania 13. So imagine if that would have came back around. Now this time, Bret is a true heel. Not just a heel inside the United States, but a true heel. Now he's aligned with Vince McMahon. Right. Now he's a technical wrestler. Now you don't have to have all of these outside, you don't have to bring all of these outside wrestlers in. You already have a base in the Hart Foundation. You're aligned with Vince McMahon. Imagine the revenue that would have made. Now you got to go through the Hart Foundation in order to get the Bret. Now you're chasing. All of that could have very well happened if not for them being adamant about getting rid of Bret. And the fact that, and the fact, among other things, hey, the screw job is the most infamous incident in wrestling history. And it's documented. You know they did you wrong. You know this. So why not have that same forgiving energy to a person who's been very, very apologetic? A person who's been very, very apologetic about the things that happened in your career. If the person keeps telling me, hey, man, I did not mean for that to happen, man, That was an accident. I apologize. And I know and I feel in my heart that he means it. Okay, I'm going to have graceful and merciful energy. I'm not going to have animosity towards a person who's being very apologetic towards it from day one. Goldberg was apologetic from day one. And if you really go back and look at the first documentary, Bret Hart, if you really look at the first documentary that Bret Hart made with the WWE, he says it himself. It's just so unfortunate that a person as good-hearted as Bill Goldberg was the person that kicked me in the head and ended my career. He said it himself that Goldberg didn't mean anything by it. It's documented in his first documentary.
Right.
So for you to have bad energy towards a person who you know didn't mean it versus a person who you knew meant everything they did to you, I mean, it was orchestrated perfectly. And not only that, they lied to you about it.
Right.
So for you to have that bad energy towards a person that you know didn't mean it versus the person that you intentionally meant to hurt you, that intentionally meant to get you out of the door, that intentionally meant to embarrass you, not only in front of your family, but your home country, hey, that says a hell of a lot more about you than it says about Goldberg.
Yep. And then Flash responded, just imagine if Bret and Shawn doesn't get hurt and Austin extends. That would have been a much different ball game. And that would have been even exciting. And look, I think Bret should forgive and move on. Not for Bill Goldberg, but for himself. To your point, he moved on and forgive Vince McMahon, Shawn Michaels, and everyone else who was involved in the Montreal screw job. If you can do that for them, you can certainly do that for Bill Goldberg, considering the fact that Bill Goldberg had no experience in the wrestling business and never was the technician as you were. So I think that's fair to say with Bill Goldberg. And I think Bret Hart should just forgive and move on for himself, if anything else. All right, champ, let's get into some entertainment. I mentioned this to you last week. Favorite Ludacris track. I know you're from Columbus, Georgia, but you love yourself some ATL. What is your favorite Ludacris track?
Favorite Ludacris track. All right, let's do it. Let's get into it. I don't do it for the cars and the fancy drives. I do it for hip hop. That album, Theater of the Mind, is when you really saw how great of a lyricist that Ludacris was. Normally, you see all the hits that he had, but when Theater of the Mind came out, you seen how really great he was as a lyricist. And that was on that album and War with God, you saw how great of a lyricist that he was. And you know, man, look, Ludacris, man, Ludacris made everybody want to get a Cadillac when we was younger, man. When we was talking about Cadillac grills, you know, that was amazing. On Southern Hospitality, another hell of a track, by the way, man. Cadillac grills, Cadillac 3. I mean, it goes on and on. It's unfortunately that this generation doesn't remember Ludacris, how great of a rapper that he is, as much as they remember him all Fast and Furious. So, I mean,
All them State Farm commercials.
Yeah, all them State Farm commercials. But I gotta say, I do it for hip hop. I gotta say, War with God, that was a good one. And you know, he was a hell of a battle rapper as well. And if you don't believe that, just ask T.I. Pimp and be easy, quick catching feelings, because you worth a couple of $100,000 and I'm worth millions. So, hey man, Luda, hey, I salute you, Luda, man. You made my childhood very, very great, man. So, hey, a lot of it's too many to choose from, but I say, you know, Theater of the Mind, that whole album was great, but I have to go with I Do It for Hip Hop, and that one was great.
What's your fantasy? Love that track.
Yeah.
The remix of Splash Waterfalls.
Okay.
I like that one. I didn't like the original one, but when you did the one with I keep forgetting the singer from the group.
Raphael Sadiq.
Yes. That was a great track. The beat, the melody. I love that one. Pimping all over the world.
Yeah.
Especially with Cat Williams at the end of the song talking about pimping, pimping, pimping.
Yes, he did.
I love that one. That was a great track. But Luda definitely got the style, the swag, man. I mean, the cornrows back in the day, like he rocking right now. He was one of the reasons why I wanted to wear cornrows other than Allen Iverson. So
Yeah.
definitely. But ATL, man, they got some great rappers. But Luda was your fantasy. And another song, although it's not really his, he was featured in that song with the great Missy Elliott, 1 Minute Man.
Yeah.
Love the track. Love that track, man. But hey, nothing better than late 90s, early thousands music. That was like rap back in the day.
Hey, Luda, man, that was special, man. That was real special, man. That was a special time to be from the state of Georgia, because guess what, man? All those guys, from him to T.I., to Pastor Troy, all of those guys, they wore their Atlanta Falcons gear, they wore their Georgia Bulldogs gear. That was a special time, man. And you know what, man? Another track I gotta give him credit for. I mean, Call Up the Homies, It's About to Go Down. I think that one was a good one too, man. Ludacris if you really look and pay attention, Ludacris got some bangers. I mean, and I go back to this. It was during one of the most competitive times in hip hop, man. Think who he had to compete with. He had to compete with Nelly. He had to compete with M. He had to compete with Dre. He had to compete with Jay-Z. Had to compete with the Locks. Had to compete with Jadakiss. I mean, when you looked at BET and MTV back then, it was loaded. I mean, it was
URL 106 in Park and Rap City back in them days.
Yes, I mean, and hey, his verse on the Youngblood song, hey, that one was special as well. So, I mean, when you think about some of the features that he did, when you think about all of the, I mean, and what was so special about that is you, on Theater of the Mind, ironically, you got to see him and T.I. team up. And that was special, man. I mean, that was a special time to be from Georgia, man. I mean, it was a very special time. And it was before the social media era, man. It was well before the social media era. And the world would not know about Southern hospitality if it were not for Ludacris, because he taught everybody how to throw them bowls. So that was special, man. That was special.
Although there's one song, I won't say the track, say the word, move, get out the way. Love that one.
Hey, let's not forget about the other song too, man.
Oh yeah, we can't forget about the other. We know the other songs, but I did like the one he did with Mary J. Blige, "Runaway Love." That was a great one too. That was a hell of a song too, especially with the lyrics and then Mary J's voice. I love that one.
Yeah.
And we got one last one, and we're gonna wrap up the show. Favorite Wayans moment? It could be from anybody: Marlon Wayans, Sean Wayans, Kim Wayans, Damon Wayans.
You know what? That man, look, that family's special.
They are.
They are. I mean, Keenan Ivory Wayans put his family on the map. It will be I have to say, the entire Living Color series, because that series introduced us to so many great comedians, from Jamie Foxx to David Allen Greer to Tommy Davidson to Jim Carrey. Yeah, Jim Carrey said himself, Keenan Ivory Wayans was the first guy to ever see something in me, and he put me directly on the Living Color. We all remember Fire Marshal Bill, man. Yeah. We all remember Fire Marshal Bill. So I would have to say In Living Color. And without In Living Color, we would not have a Super Bowl halftime show. I remember you brought that up to me a couple months ago, right before the Super Bowl. So, I mean,
Jennifer Lopez.
Yes, indeed. But I would have to say In Living Color, man, because, and I can't pick out Just one. But for Keenan Ivory Wayans to produce that show and give a big break to so many comedians, including his own family, and was just a trailblazer. I mean, if you really think about excuse me, my bad, I'm stuttering. If you really think about Def Comedy Jam, Comic View, and shows like that in the 90s that put the great comedians that we grew up on the map, you got to put In Living Color right up there with it.
Absolutely.
You got to put In Living Color right up there with it. So I would have to say In Living Color, the entire series itself, and the way that Keenan Ivory Wayans was able to produce that show and, put so many great comedians on the map. Because if it wasn't for Keenan Ivory Wayans, wouldn't be a Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey doesn't have the biggest year, arguably, in movie history without Keenan Ivory Wayans and In Living Color. The year where he had The Mask and Ace Ventura in the same year come out.
94.
Yeah, 94. That does not happen without Keenan Ivory Wayans giving him his big break. So I have to say In Living Color, man. We all love the Wayans brothers, but I think the impact on culture, I would have to say In Living Color had a more impact on culture. Now, granted, there was a lot of more funnier moments in the Wayans brothers, but impact on culture, I hate that term, do it for the culture, but it did it for the culture. In Living Color.
I've been laughing about this one because I'm laughing right now because I thought about this one during work. Remember the movie White Chicks? Remember Marlon Wayans, his character, him dating Terry Crews, and they played the track Vanessa Carlton's 1,000 Miles, and then Terry Crews dancing and singing the song.
I'm trying to hold it in.
I'm sorry, man, but that is hilarious. I'm sorry, that is hilarious to me. Like Terry Crews, man, we probably gonna have to do a favorite Terry Crews moment on the Sports PSP. But yeah, the Wayans brothers show, that was another great one. I love Damon Wayans from My Wife and Kids, from the show Damon. Kevin Ivory Williams, as you mentioned, I mean, are they, champ, in your opinion, kind of like the Jacksons in some ways? Just how they've like given opportunities and how they are as like a family?
Yeah, and in certain cases, man, look, like I said, for comedy, we don't see Pops without the Wayans Brothers show. We saw him, got a glimpse of him on Friday, but we got to see how funny he could be on the Wayans Brothers show. Like I said, going back to Jim Carrey, we don't get to see Jim Carrey without Keenan Ivory Wayans. When it comes to Damon Wayans and, Major Payne and all of those funny movies that he played in, not to mention, man, one of the funniest comedians to ever play a role with the great Bruce Willis in The Last Boy Scout. When you talk about that character, he was essentially Willie Beeman before Willie Beeman. One of those quarterbacks that just had gone bad and just flew completely off the tracks. And that movie helped personify, showed us how great of an actor that Damon Wayans was. The Last Boy Scout. People talk about the comedy movies that he played in, but The Last Boy Scout was an epic movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to give credit where credit is due on that one.
My favorite one from the Wayans is Marlon. The good basketball movie that he did with Kadeem Harrison, The Sixth Man. Love that movie. But the Wayans brothers, I watched that show still to this day on HBO Max. That's when I watched that. I watched Fresh Prince. I watched Martin. But man, the Wayans, they gave us some great content.
Yeah. Fun fact, the Robin that was going to play in Batman Forever, it was originally supposed to be Marlon Wayans.
I didn't know that.
It was really supposed to be Marlon. They, in fact, casted him for the Robin role. So, and to my knowledge, he still get paid to this day because of that casting. Because it was supposed to be, if Tim Burton would have stayed as far as creating those Batman movies in the 90s, it was supposed to be him, and Harvey Dent was still supposed to be Billy D. Williams. And Robin Williams, God rest his soul, was supposed to be the Riddler.
But man, I'm sorry, Jeff, if I terrified you with the Terry Crews moment on White Chicks, man. I'm sorry. That was a hell of a movie, though.
That was a hell of a movie. I'm just like, every time I think about that movie, I think about one thing. I think about him being at the table with that damn menu, ordering everything except the kitchen sink. I have a steak smothered in onions. I have I can't even get it out right now. But that's the first thing I think about when I think about that movie, is him being at that table with Terry Crews.
What about the runaway part? when he finally reveals who he is, and then Terry Crews is like, "You mean to tell me that you're not? No, I'm not. I'm not a girl. I'm not a woman. I'm a guy." And Terry Crews is like, "White." Oh my, that was hysterical.
That was hysterical, man. Got to give a lot of credit to that family, man. I don't think I always say, man, look, when it comes to a lot of comedians, they're very, very underrated because, hey, sometimes a lot of the old school guys get lost in the show. But the impact that they had on culture, if you really go back and look at it, I mean, like I said, Def Comedy Jam, when you think about the 90s, you got to think about 4 things when it comes to the culture. Def Comedy Jam, Comic View, In Living Color, and the Arsenio Hall Show.
Absolutely. Can't forget that. But anyway, folks, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP pod. Always a pleasure having my man, Undisputed World Champ. Any final words, Champ? And tell them where to follow you at.
Hey, first of all, man, always a privilege, an honor, and a pleasure to share the stage with you, as always, man. New Jersey Genius, you've done it again this week. And hey, man, thank you for always inviting me back, man. The dynamic duo is here. And shout out to the big 3, Flash and BRF had a hell of a show last night. Follow us on the Undisputed GOAT podcast, aired every Thursday night at 9. And hey, man, gotta give a flowers to the main man. If it wasn't for PSP, wouldn't be no Undisputed GOAT podcast. So thank you for putting us on the map. We appreciate it.
Thank you. But also, Champ, at the same time, too, you also did a lot for me as well. I would not have gone as far if it were not for your contributions. At the same time, I also want to give you credit because at the end of the day, you still put in the time, you still put in the work. That's why I wanted to collab with you. I knew that what you do at TikTok, YouTube, everything else, man, keep it up. You're on your way, man. Shout out to all the other great content creators and podcasters that we have. Brandon from the Block, Casual, Mario Knows Best, Hot Take Kenny, Luis, Rod, Harrison, Ghost. The list goes on and on. Also, shout out to another guy, SB Talk Sports, real takes over fake debates. Hope to have him back on the Sports PSP pod. Hope to be on his podcast at some point. We'll definitely work that out. Fellas, y'all enjoy the rest of a beautiful weekend. Enjoy with some preseason football and drink some water. Hot ass weather. Hot ass weather. Know that for a fact. But anyway, y'all know where to follow me at, folks. Y'all know exactly where to follow me at. Sports PSP. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as IG Sports PSP as well as TikTok Sports PSP3. Check out last week's episode. Already over 5,000 views and 9.4 subscribers on YouTube. So ain't nowhere to go but up. Loving what we're doing with the Sports PSP pod. Next week's episode, we're going to do something different. Maybe favorite Terry Crews moment. And who knows, maybe favorite Jennifer Lopez song or something else. But y'all enjoy the rest of y'all weekend. and peace.